Welcome back to Mayo Clinic Radio. I'm Dr. Tom Shives.
And I'm Tracy McCrae.
It is a craze that's sweeping the country, thanks to Marie Kondo and her KonMari method of cleaning clutter. People are taking their belongings one by one and deciding, you better do this part.
You just can't take it,
No,
can you?
I can't do it.
Yeah, they just want to know, does it spark joy? You hold the thing, and if it sparks joy, you keep it. If it doesn't, it's time to set it aside. But beyond the physical act of cleaning clutter, are there any mental health benefits to tidying up as well? Here to discuss is Mayo Clinic psychologist and co-chair of Mayo Clinic's Division of Integrated Behavioral Health, Dr. Craig Sawchuk. Welcome back to the program, Dr. Sawchuk.
Great. Well, thank you for having me back.
Yeah, Dr. Sawchuk, time to call in the psychologist for this one.
Because there is a psychological benefit to getting rid of stuff, or I guess for people keeping stuff.
Right. Yeah, there's a psychological benefit for keeping our environment more organized, but also, ironically, it can become a psychological problem with having too many things and being disorganized.
So this, does it spark joy?
Mm-hmm.
Now, tell me what that feels like. I mean, if I pick up my new driver, that sort of sparks a little joy, but I can't imagine picking up an item in my closet and trying to decide whether or not that sparks joy.
To me, it's more about being grateful for something, or if it's a sentimental item, are you keeping it just because your mom gave it to you and you have to have it, or because it's something that you really like? Is it clothing that makes you feel good, or that you're like, I'm just keeping this because I spent money on it and it doesn't even fit me?
Right. And Marie Kondo's method really is a different pathway to get to the same outcome. And certain pathways work for some people, other pathways may work for others. But I think the key thing that she's keying in on is we acquire things for reasons. There's beliefs that go behind that, whether it's like, this is a great bargain, I can't pass this up, or this item is sentimental and it means something to me, or I can use this item for some reason in some way someday. The problem is, and much of our culture is very much consumer-driven, consumerism, is that's an overly applied principle. So we start to acquire more and more things that we actually end up using. So the irony in all this is that we may end up acquiring a lot of things and not using them, and still hold on to them based upon the beliefs that we used to acquire them in the first place.
I'm sure you're not surprised that her method, it starts with, the first thing is clothing. Pull everything out of that closet.
Right.
Then books, things
Right.
so stuff that people tend to have a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
But I love it that the sentimental items are the very last step, because those are the ones that are hardest for folks. Very
much so. And that's where we look at that degree of emotional attachment with items. So again, we buy all these things and acquire them for a variety of different reasons. And I think one of the ways that her method can be helpful for folks is just think of like cognitive efficiency. So rather than going room by room and just jumping from one category to the next, I'm dealing with paperwork here, and then I've got some knickknacks over here, and then I've got some clothing over here, she's sticking with one category. So from a cognitive standpoint, there's less flip-flopping and decision-making that has to be made and focusing in on that. But you're right, there's a method to this as well, too, with moving from things that have more immediate utilitarian value to things that are informational and interesting, to things that maybe are a little bit more heavily weighted emotionally, so that by the time you get to the more sentimental things, you've had some experience with that so far.
Why does decluttering help your mental facility? When I'm feeling just terrible and scattered and overwhelmed, if I clean something, I feel a lot better.
Yeah. Well, in one way, sometimes it's just a way to regulate emotions, so a way of just dealing with the stress. But we think of almost any time in our lives where we've put a new coat of paint in a room, reorganized something, got our closet to a better place. It just physiologically feels better and more relaxing. You think of the stimulation that goes in through your eyeballs and into your brain. That can help calm things down. So actually, it really does have that way of calming ourselves. And it also reduces some unintended problems too, like where are my keys, where's my wallet, where's that thing I'm looking for, and we're digging through like a pile of clothing. That in and of itself is very stressful and unintendedly create time pressures in our lives.
So really what you see in your environment, if it's less cluttered and more tidy, then you could potentially feel better.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. And again, it just, from a physiologic standpoint, it helps to settle down. Sometimes it gives us that sense of accomplishment that we see like a kitchen that's just a mess, and we devote some time to putting things back together, and we can take a step back and we get it done. I think again, part of the reality too is that we live in these places. So it's not like we get these places tidied up and we put a velvet rope across it like we would in a museum and it just stays that way. These rooms are often in a constant state of flux, so we got to be okay with having some flexibility between things being more organized and disorganized as well.
Well, and managing stuff. I mean, 3-car garages, 4-car garages, people have got these big homes and they're completely packed full of things. That is making a big mental drain on people.
Very much so. And I think that this is where, when we buy our homes and then that have rooms, and then within each room, there are things that are naturally built to hold things. Like I've got a drawer in the kitchen that naturally holds, the cutlery. We kind of use this term called logical capacity. Like that drawer, that space is logically built to usually handle the amount of stuff they would actually use. So for, cutlery. So once we start finding that my cutlery drawer is full, but I've got more cutlery and I'm starting to put it in like a closet or these other storage areas, that's got to tell you something. And just even asking yourself, do I have an immediate plan for using this? If the time came up in the future where I actually did need to use it, where would I go and get it at that time rather than constantly planning for the future?
So I guess maybe the KonMari method is taking off because I think you said don't try to take anything to Goodwill or the Salvation Army. They're full up.
It's very full. Yeah. Are you surprised at how this is sweeping the nation?
No, because I'm a psychologist, so we get swept.
You're all in favor?
We could get swept, pretty easily by things. But the things that I like is the irony is people get these things and they're actually not being used for their purpose. So being able to actually declutter, but especially more importantly, getting these things to people who are more in need of these things that can find these and they be absolute treasures. I think from an altruistic standpoint, I think this is great. So I really am a big fan of this, whether it's Marie Kondo's method or any other method for that matter. I think it's just very, very good human trait to be able to share and to get things out to people who need them.
We both have moved to new homes within the last few years. And did you notice that when you were moving to your new place that you did this on some level?
Kula does it all. My spouse does it all. I mean, she gets the dumpster and everything goes, and she tries to do it when I'm not there.
I like her dumpster method.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to save my notes from my biochemistry course in medical school. Those are long gone, and probably just as well.
Just as well.
So how do you help a couple who one spouse is tidy and organized and the other one is a clutterer? You must have had this situation.
Without a doubt. And it's really trying to find some common ground and coming a little bit more into the middle. I think, people vary, really truly in terms of their tolerance of clutter. For one person, that may not look cluttered at all. To the other person, it may just be screaming in their brain of things being disorganized. But you try to look at in what ways is the clutter causing problems in day-to-day living, whether it's causing you a significant amount of distress or physiologic reactivity, or causing you problems, with your roommate or with your spouse or with your partner. So whenever those problems are starting to build up, then it actually should create some motivation to be able to work together. But it really does involve coming into the middle, because for somebody who really likes their stuff and likes to clutter, it's unrealistic to assume that they should lead a minimalistic life as well.
Yeah, so you tidy up and declutter when your spouse isn't there. And when they come home, they'll probably never miss it.
Possibly, or else you'll end up getting divorced.
That's
so be
right.
careful there.
We've been talking about the mental health benefits of getting organized with Mayo Clinic psychologist and co-chair of Mayo Clinic's Division of Integrated Behavioral Health, Dr. Craig Sawchuk. Dr. Sawchuk, thanks so much for being with us.
Great. Thank you so much.